Hey guys, it's Yvette, and here we are with our week 1 of sewing for the Fort Worth Fabric Studios Absolute Autumn Mystery Quilt. So this week we are going to be sewing our leaf blocks, and they have listed all the fabrics that we are going to be using. As we were cutting our fabrics, we were also labeling and putting them in individual weeks, so we should have all of our fabrics ready to go. All of the cream colored fabric you see here are fabric A. That was the fabric that we had the most of. Okay, so listen, let's get going. I am so excited to start sewing so that I can get this edited and posted up for you guys. So let's get going. Okay. The first fabrics we are going to need is the A and G 6-inch squares, and everything else I'm going to just kind of scooch over to the side so that they're out of the way, and we can pull them up one at a time as we need them. Okay, once I do that, I can take off my labels, and let me go ahead and start leaving this out so I can put them away. Okay, so we've got our 2 6-inch squares. We are going to create half square triangle blocks. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to take these fabrics and we're going to put them right sides together. Okay, and there we go, looks good. Now what we're going to do is we are going to draw a line from corner to corner on both corners. Let me get a good ruler. And we're also going to draw, so basically from corner to corner, and we're going to draw like 3 lines. So the line that is down the middle is going to be your cut line. The 2 lines on either side of that line are your sew lines. So you'll have a cut line with 2 sew lines on either side, and then you'll have a cut line and then 2 sew lines on either side of that. So let's do that. Any ruler that goes from corner to corner is fine. And as soon as I have my cut line drawn, I will put my 1/4 inch seam on that line, and then I can draw my second line. And I'll do the same on the other side. Just put your 1/4 inch line right on that cut line. My pen's just running out of ink. And they're not cheap, so I use it until it stops writing at all. Same thing on this side. This is your cut line. And you'll just put your 1/4 inch line there. Draw your first sew line. And the second one. Okay, now for me, I've already like put everything where I wanted, and so I always just take some Wonder Clips and I just clip the edges. And this is really, guys, just so it doesn't move. I just want to be able to take it over to the sewing machine and not worry about whether it moved or not. And it's a simple enough thing to do just to put some clips on. Okay, so I'm going to go and sew down all of these sew lines, these 4 lines here, and we'll come back and cut them apart. Okay, so I have done my 4 sew lines, and now I'm ready to cut these apart. So I'm going to take my 1/4 inch line and I'm going to put it on one of the lines that I have sewn. And it doesn't matter which one, either side is fine. And then you'll be able to go down the cut line. We'll do the same on this side. Okay, so now we have the 4 pieces. Oh, I forgot. It's my bad. I'm supposed to also cut this way and this way. I was like, wait, I thought I was supposed to have 8. Okay, no worries. No worries. I should have put this on my rotating. It'll be a lot easier if I use this. Or just be quicker. Anyway, if nothing else. Okay, so I'm going to put them together that way, and this way. Okay, once you have that done, you will take your ruler and just put it right down the middle here. And what you can do is, you know how you have this 45-degree line? You can put that right down here so that you know that you're in the right spot. So you can do just like that. And of course, I moved my block, so it's a little bit more precarious for me, but that's okay. I'm getting it done. It's gonna be just fine. Okay, so all of my lines are lined up, so now I'm gonna go ahead and cut right down the middle here. And then I'm gonna do the same thing right here. I can again put the 45-degree line right down the middle. Do I have that? Oh yeah, it's right in the middle. Okay, put it right down the middle. And cut that one. Okay, now we're ready. Okay, so now we have 8 half square triangle blocks, and the first thing I'm going to go do is I'm going to press the seams. Now, if you're going to use a Bloc Loc ruler, which I'm going to go ahead and do, then it's best if you press to one side or the other, because you'll need that little lip to hold the ruler, and the ruler will help you to trim your block down to 2.5 inches. So I'm going to go and do some quick pressing, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have pressed all of my half square triangle blocks to the golden gingham color. Okay, I've pressed them all in that direction. So I'm going to use a Bloc Loc ruler to trim my squares down to 2.5 inch square. And I'm going to show you how to use the Bloc Loc ruler to do that. So you'll take your square that you have just pressed, and as I said, I pressed toward the golden gingham color. So I'm going to take my ruler, and where you see the Bloc Loc logo, that logo is going to go on the side that is opposite the side you pressed toward. So I'm going to put it down to the bottom right, and then I'm going to push the ruler until I get it to lock on that seam, and it will not go anywhere. It's moving. In fact, it'll move the whole, it won't move at all. See? Okay, so I'm going to trim this down to 2.5 inches. So I'm going to just slide the ruler diagonally this way, and this is my 2.5 inch line, and this is my 2.5 inch line. So I want to make sure that the fabric ends somewhere between the 2.5 and the 3 inch line. The 2.5 and the 3 inch line. That way I have some fabric left over so I can flip this around and trim the other side. I don't want to do it all on one side. So you just need something to trim. It doesn't have to be a whole lot. Just something like this. Okay, now I'm just going to, well, move this out of the way. And then I'm going to take the ruler and I'm just going to slide it the other direction. And this time I'm going to make sure that the fabric ends right at my 2.5 inch line. So I'm going to pull it down just a little bit more to about, whoop, like right there. That's 2.5. And now I'm just going to trim the other 2 sides. And the first one is finished. So I will just finish these while you watch. Okay, so we have our blocks, our squares trimmed to 2.5 inches. And now number 2, that's our number 1. So I'll scooch that over for a minute. Our number 2 says to cut 4 A squares that are 5.5 inches. That's these guys. Make sure there are 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. They want us to cut them in half diagonally. Fold all A triangles and F stems in half, finger pressing to mark centers. With right sides together, line up the center of the brown strip with the center of the triangle and stitch. Press. Note, these seams are sewn on the bias. Be careful not to stretch the seam as you sew in iron. Okay. Stitch the second triangle to the other side of the brown strip in the same manner. Okay, so here's what we're doing. I'm going to go ahead and just trim them all at once. All right. So that means I'm going to Okay, so I have the first half of the cream color triangle sewed down on the stem, and now I am going to sew the other side on, and we're going to do the same thing. Since I've already pressed all this, I'll need to remark the center. So I'm going to fold it wrong sides together and make a little mark over here, just with your fingers, fine. And I'm going to do the same thing where I'm going to hold the pretty side toward me, and I want right sides together. And just finger press in the middle here. And then I'm going to do the same thing. So this is the right side. We want to put them right sides together, and they are making a little tent together because that's how I folded them. So we know that that's the exact middle. And I am going to head over to the sewing machine. I'm going to get all the other three ready, and I'm going to head over to the sewing machine and sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance right here. Okay, so I have all 4 of these stem pieces ready, and what I did, because we are going to cut these down to 4.5 inches, and you know, you can't use a Bloc Loc for this. It's not gonna be appropriate for the type of cutting we're doing, but since the Bloc Loc I have is 4.5 inches, I thought, you know what, I'm actually going to use the Bloc Loc, but I'm just going to use it as a way to make 4.5 inches. I still need to figure out where the middle is on each block. So I took one and I measured the stem, and it is exactly 1 inch across. So I, from one edge, I drew a line right down the middle at 1/2 inch. And so what I'm going to do is I will take my Bloc Loc, and this line right here in the middle, you can tell it goes from one end right to the other. So on that line right there, I'm going to place it right over the 1/2 inch line that I drew. And I'm just going to have to be very careful about holding it steady, because it's obviously not going to be locked in place or anything like that. It's just going to hold the spot of where I need to cut to make it 4.5 inches. Okay, now it really doesn't matter on here where you are, as long as your center line, and you can use a regular ruler, guys, if you want. You don't have to use a Bloc Loc. You can use anything to get a 4.5 inch square. But if you're going to use a Bloc Loc or something with the 45-degree angle, you're going to want to make sure that that center line is right down the middle, and that you just have white all around all sides, because you're going to be trimming all that off. So as long as you have white showing, it really doesn't matter where you are. And as long as you are directly or diagonally halfway in the stem. Does that make sense? Okay. So I'm just going to hold it best I can. And I'm going to do the first trim. And then I'm just going to make sure it's still exactly where I want it. Okay. And so that's the finished block, and you just want to make sure you're being really, just take it really slow and get it exactly how you want it. It'll be totally worth the time that you take. Okay, so let's finish the other 3. Okay, so I have finished these 4 pieces. I will set them aside and let's move on to number 3. With number 3, I'm going to use 12E and 12O rectangles and 24A, which are these guys, to make leaf points. Draw diagonal lines corner to corner on the back of the A squares, which are these, with right sides together. Place the A squares on the E and O rectangles. Make sure drawn lines are oriented as shown. Okay. And I will go over this with you, but here is what they're talking about, how the lines, the drawn lines are supposed to go on there. Stitch on the drawn lines, trim excess, press. Make 12 brown and 12 orange. Okay, so that sounds pretty easy. The first thing I'm going to do is draw the lines on the back of these squares, and I'm going to just draw one diagonal line corner to corner anywhere just on the back of the fabric, and when I come back we will start attaching them to these. Okay, so I have a diagonal line drawn on each of these A squares, and I'm now going to attach each one on one or other of these. We have 24 of these squares and we have 12 each of these rectangles. So I'm going to just put these like this, and we are going to lay these squares down right sides together with these strips in order to sew them. Now if you look at the diagram here, the brown fabric, this one, will have a diagonal line going that way, and the orange will have the diagonal line going this way, and we'll sew all of them on just like this, and when we come back we'll do our trimming. Okay, so here are the blocks. Actually, we had the browns on the left and the oranges on the right. And what we are going to do is we are going to trim off the excess towards the middle here. And we're going to keep everything to either side of that. So let's go ahead and do that trimming. Just going to set your ruler down, your 1/4 inch line right on the seam you just sewed, and trim the excess. And real quick, I'll just do one of the orange ones so you can see we're going to trim this way on that one. Okay, so you can see those right there as we go. Okay, so we have all of our pieces ready, as well as some pieces that are just going to be placed in the blocks. And basically what we're doing at this point is we are just going to make 4 of these blocks using everything that we have in front of us here. So let's see. I am going to take, I'm going to make so I have like some room here in the middle. Okay, so we're going to place this piece, which is 2.5 inches by 4.5 inches. Okay, so we'll put that one there. And then we're going to take one of these and put it here. And one of the orange ones and put it here. We are going to have this piece here. We are going to have an L block right here and put that there. One of these here, and then we'll have this go like that. We'll have an O in the middle. We will have one of these guys over here. We'll have a stem right here. We'll have this one here. Then we'll have an orange one like this. And that one there. Okay, so this is how we're going to lay it out. And we are going to sew them as we see fit, is what they said. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch these 2 together, and then I'll stitch these 2 together, and then I can stitch across to make this row. Then I can stitch these across to make that row. Then I'll stitch these 2 together and then stitch this across to make that row. And we're going to make 4 of those. So let's get going with that. Let me give these 2 a quick press so I can flatten them a little. Okay, so those were like that. So let me just start prepping this just a little bit, or at least I'm going to prep these 2 and then these so that you'll at least see how they're going to run together to make rows, and then we can put the rows together. So I'm going to turn these right sides together. We will be stitching a 1/4 inch line here and here, and then we will flip these right sides together and we'll sew a 1/4 inch line here. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to put this row together, this row together, and this row together. So the first thing I'll probably do is just take the middle and turn it right sides together with the square on the left. And I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance down these 3 pieces here. And then we'll come back, we will press this. And then we will take the 3rd piece and then fold that right sides together and sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance here, here, and here. Okay, so now we have 3 rows, and what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take the middle row, turn it right sides together with the top row. I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance there. I will come back and press that, and then I'll take the 3rd row, flip it right sides together, and sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance there. When I come back, we will have 1 finished leaf. Okay guys, so here is our finished block, and you're going to want to square it up to 10.5 inches square, and there will be 3 more that we are going to make like this one. So there you go. There's the block. Hopefully you really like it. I think it's really pretty. So I will see you guys next Monday when we have our week 2 of sewing. I'll see you then. Thanks so much for sewing with me.